we're talking about teaching physical skill of punching, kicking, keeping distance, avoiding slipping, that kind of stuff. But if your finger's broken, and you're bleeding, heavily from part of your area, and you think you might die, will you be actually able to prevail and fight, or will you just basically fall down? I mean, that's the question I've been asking myself for 56 years.
Kia ora, welcome to the Invisible Sensei podcast. This is a podcast about my experiences as a martial artist, as a student, as a teacher, as someone who from time to time has stubbed their toes on the problems of the world and kind of gone, what am I doing this for? Please take time to check out the link in the description. It will take you to our YouTube channel and also to our profiles on social media, which you're most welcome to check out and contact us on. We also have a wonderful merch shop where you can grab cups and a couple of other things if you're wanting to support the podcast, or if you're wanting to support it more directly, we have a link that you can do that also. Either way, enjoy the podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in, and keep training, keep smiling, keep enjoying, and most importantly, keep developing. My father said, it's not the punches you can throw, it's the food you can put on the table.
Right.
And
well, so, you just describe the culture of all the Okinawans. That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
And it is interesting to me because I would, for me personally, when it comes to leadership and warriorship, I think they're the same thing. But for me, I think that the people that I've chosen to follow, and people that I would call leaders or chieftainship, is really about service to others.
Yeah.
And so for me, I guess I'm going to flick the question back to you in terms of if you had to use the word chieftainship or leadership, what are the qualities that you would hope to see in the warrior?
Everything comes down to responsibility. The higher the rank, the old joke about the sinking ship, the captain is the last one to leave. That's really what it's about. But that's not really the case anymore. The leader is the one who sits in the middle of the picture with a fancy belt, and people pay service to them, and bring them stuff and snacks, whatever it is, and they kind of, well, I deserve this. Nobody deserves anything. Nobody deserves anything. You earn your right, you earn your position, and you earn respect every single day. When you get up in the morning, you're nothing. You have to reinvent yourself and re-earn those things. When you step on the dojo floor, you've been teaching somebody for 3 months or 30 years, you have to show them, I don't mean that it's a conscious idea, I'm going to show you I'm better than you. You have to re-earn their respect, right? So it's, a true leader is one who will do anything for the group, right? So it's not about the group servicing the leader, it's quite the opposite. The whole concept of samurai, one who serves, right? Bugeisha, whatever you want to call them, gunshi, whatever name you go through, those are things. Gunshi is a military person, all those things. But actually, a leader is, and in karate, we pick up these bizarre terms. We acquired the term soke. Soke is very popular, or inamoto. Soke comes from the tradition of kabuki, no, koto, those things. So you would have these houses, ikebana, flower arranging, or chado, tea ceremonies, and so it was 36 generations soke of the Ikebo school of ikebana, whatever. But a lot of it was these people were not really skillful. They were sons of people that had some superficial skill, and they relied on the certificates, the menjo, menkyo, the certificates that were issued, and they get some money from it. So it's a perpetuation of the style and issuing certificates. And karate people, for some reason, jumped on board with that. And, and it wasn't really the Western generation. It was the likes of, amazing people like Nagami Soshin and, other people that suddenly they went from being sensei to being soke of Matsuba Shorin or this or that, whatever. They took that title because Okinawans hate mainland, but also they're infatuated with mainland. So all Okinawans would like to be a samurai, have this kind of mythical Arthurian concept of what karate should be. Karate should be Budo. We can talk about 5 hours what Budo is and what Budo isn't. But it's just this whole concept of titles and things like that. So if you hold the title of soke or Hanshi or Sensei, Dai Sensei, whatever, like Yagi Sensei of Meibukan just call himself Yagi. When they speak out, people speak in Japan, they don't say me, they point to their nose. Like point to the nose and saying, I like ribs, I don't like ribs, I like fish, whatever. But it's the other people who start giving them fancy titles, and they kind of, okay, well, I guess I'm a soke, whatever. So, but the Westerns really embrace that. So, we have probably 60 tendons in Okinawa right now, which are all, they're well deserved. They're nice people. And again, I will speak, if you like, I'll speak about the people I truly respect and people who are just there. But in Western culture, you have thousands of tendons, you have thousands of soke, you have things called Sokoship Council. Every year they'll promote 20 people to soke. And my question is, if everybody's a soke, if everybody's a tendon, is anybody a tendon? Is anybody a soke? Once those titles are so, widely circulated, does it have any meaning?
Yeah, titles are certainly a contentious issue. I think wherever you go, in a lot of styles, and in a lot of cultural contexts, people have all these desires to be to have things attributed to them. I know within our indigenous martial arts, traditionally we didn't have grades or titles,
Right.
and over the last, I would say, 30 years of being involved, of my involvement in them, they've started to bring in titles and various kind of levels and all these sort of things, which have caused nothing but drama, to be totally honest. And much like Okinawan martial arts and Japanese martial arts, there's lots of different streams because there's lots of different. Our martial arts are mainly tribally based, and so there's throw a stone, you'll hit a master sort of thing.
Right.
Just
Of
ask
course.
them, they'll tell you.
And I don't mean that in any kind of disparaging way, but really, how can you have 25 masters when you only have one father and mother? The whole thing about ranking, there's only one source of ranking that matters, is from teacher to student. And it's a personal relationship, and it's a conflicted relationship. If you've been training a long time, your teacher will love you and hate you and love you and hate you over time, so you become stronger and things like that. There's a conflict in that as well. But that's who you're connected. You may be mad at your dad when you're 15 and like him at 20 and then think he's amazing at 30, whatever that is, the whole story. But why would you accept a rank on the internet from a person that you never met before? Like, what does that mean? Like, who are these people? Why would he do that?
So, Sensei, just to be clear, are you saying that 15th dan that Steve Arms Shihan wrote me out on beautiful pink paper and sent to me with the gold and turquoise belt has no meaning? Is that what you're saying?
Of course, it has meaning. It's I call it an Okinawa. I have a box of certificates from Okinawa. I have a box of certificates, and I will go to my students and train, and this guy would give me this grade and this style, and they say, wow, you're an 8th dan of this. I would go, no, it's just a piece of paper that says you're a good guy. That's all it. A lot of the certificates issued in Okinawa are just like we're just saying, like, sorry, Tori, I don't really have anything to give you, so here's a piece of paper saying you're a good guy. And then you have people who take it and they go like, I'm not a good guy, I'm a great guy, I'm the best guy that ever lived. Like, but it's just, in Okinawa, most teachers will issue two kinds of certificates. So they have set printed certificates, and most often one side would be kanji and the other side would be in English, right? Because English is the most popular language. It doesn't matter if you're French or German. Every English will say John Smith, this and stuff. But if they really, really like you, they'll paint you, so-called paint you a certificate. That they get black piece of paper. It's not printed, and I'll do a nice shoto, and they'll write it, and the flow of the characters and the rank and all stuff has a personal meaning. So, those are so you have three kinds of certificates. You have the printed certificates where people stamp, and often it's their son or daughter will stamp them for them, but fill out, because they write much better than the 80-year-old Okinawan. The Okinawan master probably never went to school, so you can't read kanji that well, anyways. So the son will write it perfectly. The daughter or son will stamp it. The second level is a handwritten one, and the last one is kind of like a makimono, which would be mokuroku. Like Tawari, I'm going to give you a certificate. And it says, your kicks are good, but your punches are lousy. So so you're a good guy. Make sure you keep your hip low and don't turn left. And by the way, you're ninth dan now. Okay, there you go. So you go, oh, I'm a ninth dan. And they go, no, no, no. Hips lower. That's what I meant. The ninth dan is secondary. The main thing is, hips lower. So you have to be intelligent enough to understand what you're getting, right? And then you have to be honest enough to actually talk about it or not talk about what you got, and so it's, and I tell my students ranking or rank is a responsibility, not a privilege. So if somebody gives you that, you have to rise to the occasion. You have to become that, what's written on a piece of paper. If you're going to frame it, put on your wall, my God, you better frickin', I'll try to be polite, live up to those words, or else it's a fraud. It's just a lie.
Yeah, it's just so many things that run through my head when you talk about those sort of things. Sensei, I find that when it comes to promotion and to rank and to grading and those sort of things, it's like you were talking about tattooing before. So I have a traditional what's called a puhoro, which is the full body tattoo, and when I got that in about 1999. And the idea is that it's a traditional, part of our culture and so on and so forth. But to be totally honest, I wanted to get it and look cool on the beach. And I thought, oh, well, this is, and I kind of fooled myself into thinking, oh, I'm doing it for all the right reasons. But what it was 4 days of absolute agony for me because my head wasn't in the right place. And I believe that probably my actual desire was quite a selfish one, so I paid the price. Now, when I get changed and things, and I see it, I'm going. I look back and go, "Oh, that's that time that I thought I was something that I wasn't," and I strive to try and be worthy of that. When it comes to rank and things like that, since they, the in New Zealand, especially, there's a lot of styles that use the Shihan, Soke, Nenchi, Kyoshi, which is perfectly fine. I get a little bit lost on all of it.
Can I just say something? Those titles have a great deal of meaning within a structure of a group, right? So within, I have quite a large group, Northern Karate, whatever you call it. Before COVID, we had over 11,000 members, and I'm talking about people like that trained regularly. I'm not talking about, people who bought members, and 3,000-4,000 black belts, and I have, I've been teaching for a long time, so I have a lot of 6 dans, 7 dans, now 8 dans. So those things, it's almost like you have an army, so you have to have a title assigned to the position they hold in terms of how they manage other people. So that's ranking in terms of, that only has a meaning within the group. It doesn't really translate outside the group. If Kyoshi and Karate, in particular style, and there's such a thing as Kyoshi and Jiu-Jitsu, might be completely different things, right? Completely different things. So those rankings are really important because you need to manage groups, so group of 10 is managed by this guy, group of 100 is managed by this guy, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the meaning for the titles that we use, the Renshi, Shihan, Kyoshi, Hanshi system that we use. But beyond that, we know who we are. So those are just, there's a term called Keigo. Keigo means honor for speaking. So if I speak to somebody, the first thing I would ask you is, how old are you? And this is very strange for martial arts people, because if you're my senior by 1 year, I have to change my language, the way I speak to you, right? Verbs change, morau, becomes itadaku, all those, to be given or received changes tremendously. Who pours somebody's drink at a table changes instantly. The level of how hold your cup out lower. If somebody's senior, you have to hold it lower than somebody's cup, all that stuff. So that's kind of Japanese Okinawan culture, but that was the culture when I was growing up in Poland. So if somebody was a teacher or professor or priest or nun, they were held in a higher esteem. They would get the best seat and the first cut of the meat, that kind of stuff. So that was not really strange to me. That was perfectly normal. Somebody who invested years and years into becoming excellent in the profession or whatever it is should be regarded. It shouldn't be how many followers you have, but it should be what you actually accomplish with your life. So those are the things that mean within a group. When you go outside, I have a big problem. You were kind enough before, calling me Hanshi. I've never referred to myself Hanshi ever. I've never written my rank on a piece of paper or a letter ever. So the whole thing honorific is is, I'll speak to, let's say, Sakamoto Tsugo Sensei or Kinjo Sakazu Sensei or any Nakamoto Masahiro Sensei, whatever. And it's always like, dear O Sensei, so-and-so, I hope you're well. I miss you. Hope to see you in 3 months, Cezar. And they will write to me back, Cezar Sensei, it's, if you're more humble, people will elevate you. If you're haughty and you're full of ego, people just look at it and shake their head, like, oh, you're number one, you're the best. And they'll never talk to you ever again. That's.
Yeah, it is interesting because it's it's also something I wanted to sort of touch on with you, Sensei. Having something I see, and it's just purely my own judgmental mind. I suppose coming from quite a well, I shouldn't say well established, but coming from, I guess, a strong cultural background, when I've had opportunities to train in Okinawa and with Okinawan sensei and things like that, I've never felt the need or desire to try and become Okinawan. I mean, I'm 6'4" and, lots of tattoos. So, the chance of being mistaken for Okinawan is probably
Yeah.
not huge. But I suppose for me, one of the things I'd love to get your thoughts on, having an appreciation for the culture as opposed to almost taking ownership. I see a lot of things, particularly in social media, where people are saying, "Oh, we are the true. We are, they're in England or America or New Zealand or Australia, Canada, wherever. We're saying we are the true, the one true line to this particular tradition. Everything else is except no substitute." And it's almost like people are trying
number
to
one reason
trying
is
to
weakness.
grab that culture.
Right. So let's look at the terms we use. Dento Gojuryu, Dento Shonryu. So you have the traditional, you have Seito, which is another term for traditional or student-based, whatever. I always tell my students is this, if your grandmother's Italian, she doesn't say to you, today we're having an authentic Italian dinner. No Italian person says we're having Italian food for food. No New Zealand, if you're Maori, you don't say, today we're having an authentic Maori dinner. You're eating dinner, you're eating food, right? If you have to put a label and explain to somebody that you're authentic, you're not. Or you might be embracing the concept as far as you understand, but it's lacking by the authentic natural concept. The proof of who you are is in doing, not saying, right? So there's no need to say somebody. I find that a lot of people, when they say, well, your Goju is very good, but my Goju is authentic Higa Seiko method. What they're actually saying to themselves, holy shit, you punch and kick really, really hard. So how can I get a pass here? Well, you know what? I know the secret that you don't know the secret. I know the old way, And for me, this whole thing about contradiction of history, Onkochi Shin, study the old to understand the new, or preserve the old to understand, it's a wonderful concept, but you can't live in either one. We live in fluid times, So you study history a little bit to understand where things come from, but history is not designed to hide behind. History is Gustav Mahler said, the best tradition is about passing the flame, not preserving the ashes, right? So are you empowering people through a tradition? Or are you just saying, well, it doesn't really work, what I teach is not really effective, but it's the most authentic method, and you will never, there's so many secrets, this whole thing about secret karate and secrets and, Kakushinta waza or Himitsu waza, the secret techniques. I would say to you that, after watching 147 posts on the secrets of Teki or Naihanchi Kata, every 15-year-old guy has a new secret of how to do Naihanchi. And the secret punch, this punch here is actually a backflip and a throw to the eye. It's just, they're very creative and very inventive. But you know what? Sometimes a punch is a punch, and and a block is just a block, nothing else.
It is easy to kind of extrapolate, and people do have, which is cool, I guess. When you talk about bunkai and oyo, to me, I suppose how I would articulate oyo, it's an articulation of a thought or that the bunkai kind of suggests. But I agree with that too, Sensei. I think that sometimes a punch is a punch, and a kick is a kick. A kick is a throw, and a
Yeah.
choke's a choke. And I know for me, when we started with this conversation, I talked about, I was interested in sort of the cycles of your karate. I know for me as a young man, if I could do something and look cool doing it, I wouldn't mind losing.
Right.
If I could win if I could do a spinning hook kick, even if I completely
Right.
missed and it
Right.
was off target, I didn't mind because I was just looking cool.
Yeah.
So with that being said, Sensei, in terms of, now that you can finally get that bus pass that you've coveted for most of your life, what is your practice like in terms of, I imagine, in the last 50 years you've been shaping a practice as it is today, and what you're working on, what your practice consists of. What does that look like, Sensei?
Okay. Well,